I had to stay in the right spot to be on the camera. Okay, so for the last 12 years, I've been making a pilgrimage to Fly Tackle Dealer or ICAST, either one, trade show. ICAST is the world's largest fishing trade show. So there's Fly Tackle Dealer, and that's what I went to for many years until they merged with ICAST in 2000. I think it was 2020, 2016. I'm sorry, and then ICAST has been held every year, and it's been going on for since 1989. So I went to Fly Tackle Dealer, and then in 2015 it merged with ICAST, and I went to ICAST for the first time, and I was absolutely blown away because it's just so much bigger than Fly Tackle Dealer. The other trade show they have each summer is Outdoor Retailer, which is usually in Salt Lake City, and it deals with backpacks, hiking, bicycles, stuff like that, as well as apparel and everything else. It's also a top paddlecraft show because they have all the different kayaks there. ICAST has the fishing kayaks, but not much else. Okay. Oh, see?
What you do with my power pack? Okay, yeah, there you go.
Okay, so the reason I'm going to ICAST now is because back when I was going to Fly Tackle Dealer, it dealt with fly tackle, and a small percentage of all the things that are relative to both conventional fishing as well as fly fishing, which is apparel, accessories, coolers, kayaks, tools, waders. You can just go on for days. Conventional tackle at ICAST had some fly fishing because there's a lot of companies out there like TFO, Loomis, Pure Fishing, which has the Hardy and Fenwick brands and so on. And so they have some they've always had some fly fishing there. So it just made more sense. And now recently, ICAST has made a big push, and you'll see why later, to include more fly fishing. And this was the first year they had several features. I always love my trip to ICAST, and it's always memorable, 2021 especially. It was a super spreader event for COVID. That's how I looked before, and that's how I looked after. I was in the hospital for 5 weeks with COVID pneumonia, and then on breathing apparatus for another 5 weeks after that. So, and then last year I went out there, and one afternoon going back to my vehicle, and I was attacked by sandhill cranes. So it's always something over there going on. But this is some of the stats from this year's ICAST. It shows you how big it is. The show space is 2 billion square feet, 412 exhibitors with over 1,000 brands represented. So like Pure Fishing is one exhibitor, but they have Abu Garcia, Hardy, Fenwick, Fluger, all those different brands in there. And then there were 13,000 attendees. I think that's the second largest crowd ever. And it includes exhibitors, retailers, buyers, media, guide, process, even celebrities. ICAST is not open to the public, neither is the Fly Tackle Dealer. You have to qualify a certain way. For years I qualified as media because I wrote the column for Louisiana Sportsman. In the last couple of years I've been badged as NPO, nonprofit organization, since I'm representing the Fly Fishers International. So it's more than just a product show. You have seminars and workshops of various tracks. There's even a fishing tournament on Tuesday morning. There's a demo day. There's focus. What's that?
Fish in the tournament?
No, I didn't fish in the tournament, fortunately. But anyway, there's focused access to media and retailers. And celebrities abound. And this is Jimmy Houston. I don't know if y'all recognize him now. He looks like a hippie out there. But I also ran to Roland Martin at the fly fishing pool. He was casting a Hardy rod. He's a really good caster, by the way, fly caster. Yeah. So, like I said, Tuesday's the on the water demo, and that's where we get to try all the kayaks out. And there was some interesting stories on that. Like I was telling Bill, there was one kayak in there that they had a rainstorm. Everybody came back. They put the kayak in the water, pulled the scupper plugs, and the water wouldn't drain from the front of the kayak. They still had about an inch. So now they got to go back and redesign that kayak. The Wednesday industry breakfast, and then they have the state of the sport presentation. For me, this was big this year because one of my, I guess I'm a fanboy of former astronaut Mike Massimino. I don't know if y'all have seen him on TV. He's been on Neil deGrasse Tyson's show. He does host on Science Network, some shows. And he's the guy who fixed the Hubble telescope. With not for him working in space, on spacewalk, working for the Hubble telescope, they wouldn't have found thousands of exoplanets. So that's his big contribution. So the new product showcase is also another feature of ICAST. And yeah, it's funny how all these companies try to promote, get you to vote for their product at the new product showcase. They offer free beer. And the lines just get real long. Like I mentioned, there's seminars at ICAST, and I was participating in the convention, the conservation tracks. They were hosted by Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership. And they included incorporating water quality and fisheries management, Everglades restoration update, rigs to reefs, descending devices to limit barotrauma, like red snapper fishing, Gulf fisheries management council updates. Menhaden, we have Menhaden Management Roundtable, but this is the one that really drew my attention, was the pharmaceutical contamination in Gulf fish. And it was presented by Dr. Aaron Adams. He's the gentleman to the very right up there at the table. There's a lady past him, but he's right there. And it's always a great thing to hear him talk. He's just a fascinating speaker. But that presentation just kind of got everybody's attention. Every fish that redfish that they tested in Florida waters had pharmaceutical contamination in there.
Such as?
He listed some of the medications or whatever that were in there. But they,
Goes down the sewer.
yeah, a lot of it's sewer. Some people just throw their pills into the toilet and flush it, and that's one way.
Bodily waste that carries out.
Some bodily waste, but a major source is just people dumping their pharmaceuticals into ditches or into toilets or whatever, rather than disposing of them properly. And he was mentioning that it has an impact of causing, for example, redfish to not want to spawn. They lose fecundity and all that. So somebody suggested maybe go ahead and dump some Viagra in the water. He said,
That might be kind of dangerous.
Let's say, I mentioned since the fly tackle dealer and ICAST split, ICAST, and for reasons you'll see later, realizes they've got a market for fly fishermen to come to their show. And so this year they made a big push. They created something called the ICAST Fly Shop. And all the fly fishing vendors that were there put something into the fly shop. So it was a one-stop shop or spot or whatever you want to call it. You go in there and you could see all the different brands, the products that each of the exhibitors had, on display at their booths or whatever. You see right there, and then you go back and talk to those guys or see what test cast a line, whatever. It was a really neat idea, concept. They also had the casting pond next to the fly shop. And so you could go to any of the, they had this when Fly Tackle Dealer, and they had this when ICAST and Fly Tackle Dealer were merged. But when they split, we didn't have this. Now this year they're bringing it back. It was extremely popular. This is Andy Mill, by the way. He's a tarpon fishing legend. He has many of the world records on tarpon. And he was casting that line, and it was going over that barrier way out there, about 100 feet away. So he's a tremendous caster. So is this young lady. Her name is Anna Dines. Remember her? She put on the exhibit. She was out there with both a fly rod in each hand, just making tight loops. So tight that, as Lefty Cray once described it, it could pass through the mesh in a screen door. She was doing some other casting as well. Just amazing young lady. She's a guide in Western North Carolina. And you talk to her and you can feel the enthusiasm she has for fly fishing. So I think she's going to be a superstar someday. So what are some of the trends in the industry? Every year there's something, some things you can take away and say, oh, we're seeing this in fishing, and we're seeing that in fishing. Anything related to kayak fishing this year was up. I mean, I would say probably a fourth of all the booths out there had something related to or interest to kayak fishermen. And motorized kayak fishing is way up. Now that Hobie and Native have pulled out of sponsoring a lot of tournaments, Old Town, companies like Old Town and Feel Free and others, and then of course the people that make the electric motors like Torqeedo and Bixby and so on, they've stepped up and, sponsor tournaments. And so if they sponsor tournaments, guess what? The old concept of you can't use a motor in a tournament, that's gone. So now a lot of these kayak bass tournaments I'm fishing are motorized. You can get in there. And so I saw so many different motors and everything out there. And then of course there's a rise in women's specific gear and an increase in moderate price tackle. And you'll see why in a minute. I talked about the motorized kayaks. These were all products in the new product showcase right here. There's probably 7 or 8 altogether. But these 3 were, the top one right there is Newport Vessels, Bixby, and then this was Texas Power Paddle, a new company. And what was interesting in all of these was the amount of runtime that they're getting now. That new Bixby right there can run for 24 hours on a 50 amp hour. 50 amp hour battery, 24. Yeah, it can run for 24 hours now. So, okay, so I used to go through all the products I saw at ICAST, and that just takes too long. So I started doing something different in this presentation. I do the ICAST product stock market. I don't know if any of y'all listen to Full Ride on Sirius XM with Coach Newheisel and the show pony, Chris Childers. But they like to do this thing, stock up, whoop, stock down, whoa. So I kind of do that same thing. So one of the products I say stock up is the Frog Togs lightweight sling pack, which is $79. It actually came out last year, but it's the first time I saw it this year. And it's just really comfortable. I like small sling packs. Obviously on days like this, they're perfect because they're lightweight. Orvis makes a great one. That's the most comfortable. But a lot of these small sling packs are really uncomfortable. This one was really, really comfortable. And I loved it. But you see that chartreuse thing right there? That's a stringer. I didn't know this, but they're making plastic stringers now for fish. It's supposed to ease the fish or whatever. I'm thinking the fish is going to die. You're going to cook it. Why do you need to be gentle on the fish? I don't know. I guess maybe. But it does, I guess it makes it easy so it doesn't tangle.
Makes you feel good.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, it doesn't tangle. Cortland Compact Intermediate Line. Remember at last month's meeting we talked about the floating lines, sinking heads, and all that. That's what this is. It's an intermediate clear head with a floating full line back on it. And it casts really, really well. So I plan to get this. No Wake Outfitters in Metairie is carrying this line. I will carry that line. I'm a big fan of inflatable PFDs for kayak fishing because, you know, you got freedom of movement, both paddling and fishing. And but if you're looking for one that has a lot of buoyancy, like 35 pounds, you're paying over $200. This one right here is $139. And what I also like about it is it comes in colors that aren't black. Because on a day like today, you get out there with a black anything, and it's just hot.
Is it automatic?
Yeah. It's automatic or manual. Another stock up, whoop, is Bonafide SKF 117. And this is a combination hybrid of a skiff and a kayak. I used to have a Diablo kayak. Do y'all remember that? Do you remember? It was kind of the same thing, but it was really wide. It was kind of slow. It didn't track well. You really had to put a rudder on it. And I just didn't like it. But this one paddles a whole lot better. It's got, you know, in the testing we did on the lake for demo day, it had moderate speed. It tracked really well. Of course, it's got excellent stability. But again, it's got that clean front and everything, just perfect for fly fishing.
What does hybrid mean in that case?
Hybrid between a stand-up paddleboard and a kayak. Okay, so another one stock up is the Vibe Makana 100. This is a fin-powered, you know, like the Hobies. When Hobie's patent expired on the original fin drive, there's a whole bunch of kayaks that came out with those, penguin powered, I call them. But this one is really neat because it's 33 inches wide. It's 55 pounds. Most of these boats are really, really heavy. So this is one you could take and just throw in, you know, combat launch it or whatever. Great thing about it is it was $1,600. It's $1,600. So that's really cheap for a pedal kayak.
That's with the fins?
Yeah. And then this one I really like. And this is a Thrust Me Kicker all-in-one trolling motor. It's actually got a lithium battery inside. Now it's not going to go a whole big distance. You can actually they actually sell an auxiliary battery that you can connect to this to give you more range. But if you're just going like the Cane River, for example, for the day and fishing, you're going to be within 2-3 miles of the launch. You can use this and it'll run all you need on your kayak. Again, it's just a trolling motor, and it comes with a bag, a soft bag that you can put it in. So it's really neat. And $1,500, that's a lot cheaper than going with a Torqeedo or a Bixby or whatever. TFO replaced the Axiom, which was a great rod, but the few times that I used it on big redfish on the marsh, I really had a problem with it because it just didn't seem to have the backbone to pull those fish in. This rod, they knew it because that's what they told me. The rep told me, he said, we realized that the Axiom just didn't have that power. We put it in the Blitz. So this new rod right here, the Blitz, replaces the Axiom. And it was a great casting rod, like all TFO rods. Maxon was there. They had 3 reels that are fairly new. They're all machined. These 2 on the left are sealed. The one on the right is not sealed, but it's machined and hard anodized. It's $149. And playing with these reels, in fact, I used it later when I was casting, they just felt really good. That's a great deal for the money right there. One of my favorite rods I casted was the Maxon Aerialis, named after the emperor. It's a very low swing weight. In fact, it had an almost negative swing weight. It passed my overall casting test, which is what I get up there and I'll make a cast right here, and I'll make a cast right here, and then I'll cast short. I'll make a few short casts, then I'll see how long I can go with distance and accuracy and everything else. It just excelled. I tested with that Max and Max reel. But I really love this rod right here. And it's $280. It comes with a lifetime warranty. And what I also like about it is it's got a long grip on there, which is something you're seeing now is some of those new rods coming out, saltwater rods, have like 6-inch grips on there, which is pretty sharp. I mean, if you're casting all day, you want to move your hand up and down on that grip. This is really nice. Of course, what won the best of show in the fly fishing category was this rod right here, the Hardy Marksman Z. And it just excelled at all levels of testing. It's a saltwater series, it won best fly rod. It sells for $995. And it's going up against the Sage and Orvis Helios 3, which are priced at over $1,000. So it's a premium rod, but it's a great rod. Okay, so stock down. The Renzetti 2-bar station is not what you see right there. It's actually just this little thing right there. It's $55. It could be attached directly to your vise. And maybe it's just me, but I just don't like something like that that's attached to the vise that's so close with the tools and everything else. I'd prefer just to have a little block like this, a little tool caddy on there. But I just thought this was just, a little bit too much. This was the Old Town EPDL kayak, and it was the talk of ICAST. Everybody came to see it. Everybody wanted to test it. It's based on the e-bike principle. So, you can pedal, or you can pedal assist, or you can just let the thing pedal itself. And it runs off a battery that's in that slot right there, that casing. It weighs 143 pounds. So it's, you're not going to car top this thing. And the sale price is $6,000 on there. So, somebody says, we just soon buy a boat. I think maybe you're getting close to it. But I heard several people say who do tournaments, they were like, oh, what are we going to do with this? How are we going to handle this? And then there was this right here. And on the demo day, this thing was wildly popular. Everybody was doing this. They'd go out there and they'd spin around. And they were just spinning around and moving around. And I'm thinking, that's great for playing, but this is not something you want to fish out of.
Regular drop down trolling motor?
Yeah, it goes right in the middle of this thing. And your seat is on the side. And then, of course, you've got, it's inflatable. So that's another story on its own. But the first thing you have to know is that with that seat being off-center like that, if you have wind of any kind, you have wind cocking that goes on. And you find yourself suddenly, you might be going fishing like this, and the next thing you know, you're like that. So this trolling motor has to run full time just to get you into, keep you in position and everything. It's kind of crazy. So on Tuesday, every year, in conjunction with ICAST, the Recreational Boating and Fishing Foundation releases the State of the Sport report. And it's basically a summary of the previous year. This year was 2022. The statistics and everything. They do a presentation at the ICAST breakfast. So, there's all kind of good news. Fishing is still on the rise. We had 2 million more fishermen in 2022 than we had in 2021. We have an increasing number of women are taking up fishing. 40% of all first-time participants were women. relative to, and this is something I was talking to you about, Mike, taking those grandkids fishing. You know, you took yours for the first time. I took my oldest two for the first time. This is the reason you want to take a kid fishing right here. In the survey they did, the fishermen, they found that 86% of all fishermen have fishing experience, were introduced to fishing before age 12. So if you get them started early, they'll likely become fishermen. As far as fly fishing goes, we're still in the increase. We had a little bit of downturn last year, but we're still in the increase. We're up 38% since 2010. And so we have more fly fishermen today than we've had in the 40-something years that they've been doing this survey. So, the other good news regarding fly fishing is female participation is up. The age brackets that's about as distributed as I've ever seen it before. So we have lots of people in all different age groups in fly fishing now. Demographics, income, education level are more balanced than we've ever been. And Hispanic participation is up from 8% to 10%. So it's all good news because we're getting a lot of people, and we're getting a lot of people from diverse people into our sport. Okay, so this is important right here. Regionality, you could see that the most number of fly fishermen in the United States are in the South Atlantic and states right there, from Virginia down to Florida. West Central, South Central, which we're part of, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, went up from 10% to 12% this past year. So we had significant growth. Pacific is still up there, 17%, second highest number. But remember I told you that ICAST and Fly Tackle Dealer split? The reason they split again is because the Fly Tackle Dealer folks, AFTA, they consist mostly of people on the West Coast and in the mountain states up there. July is their prime fishing month. So if you have a fly shop in West Yellowstone or in Boise, Idaho, you really don't want to go down all the way to Florida in the heat of summer, spend a week down there and, get in the sun and hot while you're missing out on all the action that's taking place up where you live. So they moved Fly Tackle Dealer back, and they have it in October. Well, guess what's the peak fishing time for all of these new people down here is? October. Yeah. So, look, just add the numbers up. You look at South Central, East Central, South Atlantic, and Mid-Atlantic, and that's over half the country right there. That's well over half the number of fly fishermen in the country. So for us, it makes sense to go in July. And that's what ICAST is, the people at ASA, the American Sport Fishing Association, is banking on, that they'll be able to market fly fishing to that contingent of anglers, shops, and everything else. Another thing is, we have far fewer traditional fly shops than we've ever had. But it's been taken up, that space has been taken up by general outfitters. People like Pack and Paddle, Washita Outfitters, No Wake Outfitters, Mariner Sales, and so on. And these people sell not just fly fishing stuff, they sell kayaks, they sell hiking clothes, they sell backpacks, and so on, everything else. So where they want to go is to ICAST, because they get to see a broader range of products than they would at Fly Tackle Dealer. So I think fly fishing at ICAST is going to continue to grow. In fact, they've already said next year they plan to double the space that they have for the fly fishing section at ICAST. So that's good news. Okay, and this goes to state, this takes me into the state of fly fishing as far as sales go. Now I said there are far fewer fly shops now than there were, 15, 20 years ago. So why is fly shop sales so high? Can anybody guess?
Not retail.
Huh?
Not retail.
No?
Connected to guys.
No? You all buy stuff.
Online.
Exactamundo. Exactamundo. When, I remember one fly shop owner telling me, this was about maybe 10 years ago, he said, oh, I got to go do battle with the internet. Okay, well, people like Orlando Outfitters, Jay Stockard, Fly Shack, Feathercraft, Fly Fish Food, you go down the line, South Dakota Outfitters and all that. Rather than fight the internet, they bought into it. And so you have few of those, but they're making a lot of money with online sales. And they really,
Small ones have done that too.
yeah.
But Fly Fish Food and all that, they're not
Oh.
big and they all online.
Yeah, Fly Fish Spawn, there's one. Bob Marriott's too on the West Coast. He's already done well, but he really killed it during the pandemic. So, so fly shops still make a lot of money, but that's coming from the internet. With price protection, eBay, sales of fly fish stuff on eBay makes no sense anymore. Because you can't get any cheaper price on anything. The general sales is really going up. And I say general, that's like Pack and Paddle, No Wake Outfitters, Oyster Outfitters, Mariner Sales, Fishing Tackle Unlimited. Stores that sell a variety of fishing goods or other goods besides fly fishing. And so that's why ICAST is, like I said, going to continue to grow. So every year somebody puts this up there. That one of the best to show was the Nike Perch Pacer. There's no such thing, but believe me, Nike's thinking about it now. Because everybody loves this. I would buy it in a second. Take my money, please. Any questions about any of this? No questions?
How do they get the percentage on the fly fishermen back on that slide? You get like 5%.
I asked them that question one time,
How do they
and
determine, how do they know these guys in this room fish? How are they counting that? I wonder.
yeah, they do all kinds of survey things and everything else. Yeah, for example, they might. My oldest son used to work at Arvest Baton Rouge, and they contacted him one time, and they got from him the number of sales for that year with a Louisiana address. And I said, Kevin, how many people did buy stuff from Orvis in Louisiana? He said, Dad, it was over 20,000 people. And so, not everybody buys stuff from Orvis. That's just, and so what they do is they look at that and they say, okay, well, they look at other stuff as well. They do surveys, they do polls, everything else. And the lady told me there was somewhere between 60,000 to 80,000 fly fishermen in Louisiana. That sounds pretty high when you consider that there are 7.8 million fly fishermen in the country. That's, we still have a long ways to go.
I would think YouTube has some contribution to make that increase too, because you can't before YouTube, okay?
Yeah.
You go on TV and go through 75 channels, you never saw anything on fly fishing.
Right.
You can go on YouTube and sit there and watch it for 2 days and never watch the same video of somebody's fly fishing. I just wondered that they promote a lot, the guys promote a lot through there, so that may go to it too. Their advertisers aren't fly shops. So,
Yeah. Well, during the
big.
pandemic, the number of fly fishermen blew up because people, didn't have anything to do, so they went on YouTube. They could watch fly fishing videos on YouTube, learn to fly fish, learn to fly cast, and everything else like that. And fly shops, at least the online fly shops, killing. So,
So I got a question. One of our products that we all use to fly fish that is so broadly abundant is fly line.
yeah.
If you go to Rio, how many different fly lines do they have? It must be 1,000.
Too many.
the variations, to me, are just, some of them are just very minor variations. You got long head, short head, you know, overweight, underweight, true weight, and materials.
Oh, yeah.
So what do they say about, what do they do? Do they introduce a lot of new fly line every year up there to try to promote?
Yeah, they do. I mean, you know, it's not much innovation material for flat line. So what they're doing is, okay, I'm gonna make this front taper this long, and maybe this head a little bit further up, and then balance it a little more in the back side and everything else. I'm gonna call this the Butler Minna type line or something like that.
They market it, you can buy fly line for bonefish, tarpon, trout, you know.
Stripers, tuna, green sunfish. It's crazy.
Yeah,